Well, to politics, the sand has just about run out of the hourglass. We are, well, who's counting? We are less than 9 hours away from a partial government shutdown. If the Senate, the House, and the President can't come together, find common ground on a spending bill. Here's what you can expect if there is a partial government shutdown. About 800,000 of the 2.1 million federal employees would be affected if the government shuts down at midnight tonight. Around 380,000 employees would be furloughed. Another 420,000 would be what they call accepted from furloughs and deemed essential employees. They'd work and they'd get paid later for that work. And while the 75% of the government whose budget bills are already approved, they'll be unaffected, the remaining 25% include some pretty high-profile agencies, including Homeland Security, Transportation, Commerce, Interior, Agriculture, Housing, Urban Development, and Justice. So we got a lot going on, and we do not have a lot of time left. Joining us right now are congressmen from both sides of the aisle on Capitol Hill. So glad to have both of you here. House Budget Committee member, Congressman Tom McClintock of California, along with House Financial Services Committee Vice-Ranking member Dan Kildee of Michigan. Congressman, thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
I want to start with you, Congressman McClintock. You did your job. Both of you did. You got this thing out of the House. What are your friends doing at the Senate right now? What is the likelihood that they could even get this to a vote on the floor?
Well, the Senate's been paralyzed by its cloture rule for years. Cloture was supposed to protect the right of the minority to debate. It's become a very effective tool of the minority to prevent any debate. It takes 60 votes before you can even begin to consider a bill over there. And that's the fundamental problem we've run into during this session of the Congress on this and so many other issues. What should happen is they should pick up the bill and act on it. Use their own judgment. They're allowed to disagree with us. In fact, they're supposed to disagree with us. Send us back their best version. And then there's a conference process. It's evolved over centuries. It's very good at working out the differences between the two houses. But unfortunately, these days, it is very rarely invoked.
Congressman Kildee, this sounds like a lot of ping-ponging back and forth, back and forth. A, how long can this take? And can they do it within 9 hours before the deadline?
Well, it shouldn't take this long, and we shouldn't wait until the government is about to close to take on these tough issues. And while I may disagree with my colleague, Mr. McClintock, on some of the substantive issues, I absolutely agree with him on process. There is a way for the House and Senate to reconcile its differences. The Senate should take up legislation. In fact, they did. They passed legislation and sent it over to the House. The House passed legislation that differed substantially. So we're already at that impasse where we have a House and Senate passed version that do different things. I would be satisfied if the parties got together and negotiated an agreement and brought it back to both houses and let the chips fall where they may. What we can't have, though, is the president continue to take the position that there's no negotiation, that there's absolutely no negotiation, that there's no middle ground at all. That's the position that he's taken, and that's not helpful to the process.
Yes, except the president does not have part of the legislative process. The legislative branch and the executive branch are two entirely different agencies. He gets to weigh in once the Congress is active. Right now, the ball's in our court. We're supposed to act, and the problem is we haven't because we're not following our own procedures.
I think
what's the appetite right now to invoke the nuclear option here and just get this through with the majority?
Well, I suggested that 2 years ago. I suggested that a couple weeks after the election, I came to the House floor and warned that the single greatest impediment to the success of the 115th Congress and the 45th president was the Senate's cloture rule. They could have reformed it then. They did it for Supreme Court justices. That's the only way that we got Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh confirmed. But they have stubbornly refused to do it on all other matters, and that has caused an enormous number of problems, this being only the latest of them.
But I'd imagine, Congressman Kildee, that the reluctance to use the nuclear option here is that it could backfire, so they try to not use it on policy. Is that accurate?
That's been the case. But I agree with Mr. McClintock that I think there's space for a real conversation about how the Senate rules can sometimes impede progress. But let's be clear. The reason the Senate is not moving forward on this now is not because of the cloture rule. The Republican-led Senate can't even get a majority, a simple majority, on a motion to proceed. They can't get to 50 votes right now on this legislation. That ought to send a message that the bill, as the House passed it, is dead on arrival.
Or maybe the senators ought to get back to Washington and do their jobs.
Well, they're trying to get a lot of them back, right? They have some missing votes. This is crazy that we're pushing this once again into the final hours, and it's right before Christmas. Is this really, Congressman McClintock, between who has the upper hand? Is it the president, or is it Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi?
Well, that's a very good question. At the moment, it would seem to be Chuck Schumer because he's been able to block consideration in the Senate. Although I agree with Dan, it's not quite as simple as that. The point is that in our process of checks and balances, nobody is supposed to have the upper hand, and we do have a process to work these issues through. Again, it's my supreme frustration we're not using it.
It's interesting because last week, during that infamous sit-down with Chuck, Nancy, and the president, President Trump said, I'll take the blame for the government shutdown, and now he's blaming it squarely on Democrats, Congressman Kildee. So who's going to take the blame? And then do you think the government does shut down?
I don't know if the government shuts down. We have a simple process right now. The Senate or the House could simply pass the Senate-passed bill, and we could send it to the president and leave it in his hands. It would be up to him. But I think the president was right about one thing. He will bear responsibility. And where I think I may disagree with Tom a bit, it is true that we each have our constitutional duties. But many in the House and many Republicans, perhaps not Tom, have ceded their control or their authority to the president. Many were willing, for example, to vote for what we call a clean CR, but when the president signaled that he wouldn't sign it, suddenly they're no longer in favor of that.
Let me ask you another question, Congressman Kildee. Is there some sweetener that can be thrown in where the president gets his $5.7 billion for the wall or the steel slat or whatever, and you get something? You get a deal for Dreamers, you get protection for special counsel Robert Mueller. Is there a sweetener that you just have to accept?
I wouldn't throw protection for Robert Mueller into that mix because I think if there is something on border security, which makes sense, not 7th century technology, but a 21st century version of that, and we can also look at the other problems we see in immigration, dealing with DACA, dealing with some of the problems we have with the necessary guest workers it takes to fill the needs that we have in this country. In other words, doing comprehensive immigration reform, then I think we could come to an agreement.
All right. Well, Congressman, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy days and joining us. And we'll be following this, as I know you will. Congressman Tom McClintock and Dan Kildee. Merry Christmas.